We have a special episode on this week's Hometown Haunting. Unfortunately, Tim couldn't be here this time, so I am subbing in as host, co-host, whatever you want to call it. I'm Quentin. I'm a writer for Ghost City Tours, and I'm subbing in.
Well, thank you for being here, Quentin. I'm Misty, and I'm excited to bring our guest for today. So, yeah,
we
by
have
all means.
A very special guest. She is a best-selling author. She has just released her first novel. She's released several books throughout her long and prolific career, but she just released her first novel called Bandun Gate this year. Yes. She's from D.C., moved to Charleston, been there for several years, and has been a journalist for at least 30 years at this point.
Yeah, very interesting background. Reading on her, like she's done and accomplished a lot. So look into her when we're done with this podcast. Check out her other publishings and give her a follow. Yep. I think very interesting things will be coming from her in the future. So, but yes, her haunting history is quite interesting. So I'm interested to see what she has to offer us and give us her insight on hauntings. But thank you all for listening today, Hometown Hauntings, and we're doing Charleston.
Yeah.
And the drink for today, we did Charleston's hometown, something popular out there, which is Planter's Punch. So I concocted that for us, and we have something tasty to drink, wet our whistle, and let's let this show begin.
And without further ado, Miriam Van Scott.
Yes. Hey, Miriam.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes. So we'll go in a little bit about your background. So tell us what you did, what brought you into this area.
Okay, sure. I started my career as a news reporter, and I did a lot of sort of across the board. I did human interest, and I did a lot of local stories, and I did religion, covered religion stories. And at one point, I was trying to find a book that would describe the afterlife from across all different religions and mythology and art. I couldn't find a book like that, so I ended up writing one. That was my first book. It was originally supposed to be one book, The Encyclopedia of Heaven and Hell, but then my publisher split it into two. So that was technically my first two books.
Okay.
And then since then, I've been doing mostly nonfiction and research type writing. Again, I've been news reporting forever. I've done some work for History Channel and Learning Channel. And then I moved to Charleston, and Charleston is known as one of the most haunted cities in America. And I started hearing more and more really interesting ghost stories, and I decided to use that to write a novel.
So where's hometown for you?
I was born in Washington, D.C., and I grew up in the Northern Virginia suburbs. So my hometown is Manassas, Virginia, which is the other end of the Civil War. When I would come down, we'd been coming down for years to Charleston, and I used to be a little bitter because I grew up in Manassas, and Civil War for us was the stone house where they had the table where they would tell you about sawing soldiers' legs off and the straw on the floor to suck up all the blood, and the people who got trampled because they were there to watch the battles. And then I'd come down to Charleston, and the Civil War down here is the plantations and the antebellum dresses, and it just had a very different feel to it. So.
Have you always had an interest in paranormal and hauntings, or is that just something that happened as you moved down to South Carolina?
I've always been interested in it. I grew up when I was a kid. I loved the old Twilight Zone reruns and reading Ellery Queen and Alfred Hitchcock magazine. I always loved those old, weird British horror movies that had like Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Tales from the Crypt, things like that. So I'd always been interested in it. I always tell people I went through 12 years of Catholic school, and then my first job writing was working for the government. And if you've had that kind of background, the only thing you can really focus on after that is hell.
So let's say you are a believer in the paranormal and ghost afterlife.
I believe there's definitely a lot more going on than just the surface level. Okay. I'm not sure what exactly, and I feel like every time I learn something or hear a new story, it kind of makes me question again what I thought I knew about everything. But I definitely believe there's something going on.
And given that you've written 2 encyclopedias about both heaven and hell, you don't have any like definitive answer for us about what happens after we die?
No, sadly I don't. That's what I'm saying. And the more I learned about the afterlife in general, the more I think, wow, this theory is good, or these people have a good point, or this seems to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose it's like everything else. Part of the allure of it is that it's a mystery,
Mm-hmm.
and that we keep wondering and keep guessing and keep trying to build the knowledge we have, rather than, oh, here's the answer, done.
So your personal beliefs. So do you think that if you're more of a believer that you have more of a connection and the paranormal or ghosts are more attracted to you in a way?
I think it's probably like anything else in life, that if you're paying attention and looking for something, you're much more likely to find it and to tune into it. Whereas if it's not on your radar, it can be easily missed. I mean, if you're a butterfly lover, you will see the monarchs and the different butterflies. And if you're not interested in it, they could be everywhere around you and it just won't register.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like that with the paranormal. I think that if you're sort of in tune, whether you're coming at it from a sense of belief, as in I have a religious belief that there's something going on and I'm more in tune with that spiritual center, or if you're just sort of a casual ghost chaser, I definitely think that, if you're looking for it and cognizant of what's going on around you, you're much more likely to see it.
How long have you been in Charleston at this point?
We started coming down here for the summers in 1997, but we didn't move down here. We bought the house in 2015. Okay. So about 7 years that we've been residents.
And in that time, have you experienced anything paranormal in Charleston?
I've had a lot of weird things, and I am very reluctant to call something paranormal or to say I've had any kind of vision or revelation or whatever, because of, as I said before, I just feel like part of it is the mystery. So I'm sort of reluctant to do that. But I have had a lot of weird things happen that seem just more than coincidence. When I started researching the book Bandun Gate, there were just a lot of weird things. At one point, I was saying to my husband, we'd lived in the house where I was writing, at the house that's described in the book, for years and years. And we started talking about how it was weird. We never had a bird fly into the window. And literally, while we were having that conversation, for the first time in 5 years, one flew into the window and broke its neck and died right there on the deck. Okay. And just things like that would happen that were just
too coincidental.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then so many people, both when I was writing the book about hell and then writing the book Bandun Gate, wanted to share their experiences. Mm-hmm. And most people are the same way. Very, very few people will come up and say, oh, I definitely saw a ghost, or something definitely, paranormal happened. But they'll sort of explain what happened and again say it's really hard to find another explanation. There's no other apparent logical explanation.
That makes sense. So does your husband support your writing?
Oh, yeah, definitely. In every possible way, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Yeah. Yes, he's very supportive.
What a good guy.
Yeah, he is. He's a good guy.
I'm curious about your book, because Bandun Gate, it centers around you and your daughter experiencing these things happening. And was that always the case? It was always going to be centered around you and your daughter as characters, or did that come naturally while you were planning out that you wanted to do a novel and outlining it and all that?
It was sort of a synthesis of a couple of things that happened in very close proximity. I was down here and I'd been hearing a lot of Gullah stories. Gullah is the native culture down here that was brought over by the Africans, and they have an incredibly layered and rich spiritual belief system. So I was hearing a lot of those stories. Meanwhile, when my husband and I moved down here, Abby was still living in Northern Virginia. And so I was worried about her. It's hard to be away from, she was 21, 22 at the time, but it's hard to be away. And then one day, Dan and I were out, my husband Dan and I were out driving, and we came upon this really weird gate structure. And it was just this massive structure in the middle of absolute nowhere. It was a fence and a gate that had all these things attached to it, toys, videotapes, kitchen utensils, just all these strange things. And I took some pictures of it because I'm also a photographer, and I thought it was interesting. And then when my kids came down, I took Abby, my daughter, to see it, because I thought she would think it's interesting. And then later someone said to me, oh, that's done to, those objects are to keep spirits away. The idea of that gate is that it's keeping evil in check.
Okay.
Well, not long after that, and then the person said, oh, I can't believe you took your daughter there. And I said, oh, she's fine. She's back in Virginia. She's fine. And that person said, well, how do you know she's fine? She's 500 miles away. And the next day, or like within a day or two of that, I got a phone call from someone saying, we've kidnapped your daughter.
Holy crap.
And if you don't do what we say, we're going to start cutting her up and sending her to you at a piece at a time. So all these things sort of happen in relative, quick succession. And that sort of was the beginning of Bandun Gate.
So when you were out and you were, I guess, doing photography, you just ran across this gate, or did you hear about it and you were in that vicinity? Is it a place where only
we were on our way?
Go?
We were on our way somewhere else. We were on our way to, there's a distillery out there on one of the islands, and we had wanted to go see it. And I take my camera everywhere.
Uh-huh.
I take a lot of pictures. Yeah. And so I had my camera, and my husband, we were driving by it, and we drove by quickly. And I said, did you see that? And he said, no, I didn't see anything. So I kind of made a note of where we were. And I said, well, after we're finished with what we're doing, let's come back and, take a better look at it. Mm-hmm. And from the beginning, I just want to say, I am not like a super superstitious person. Like I'm not that way at all. However, as soon as we got there, I told Dan, just stop alongside the road. Yeah. Do not drive under that gate. Do not cross that barrier. I've seen a lot of horror movies. I've read a lot of creepy stories. And this is like, this is how they all start. Yeah. They all start with, this would be fun. Yeah. And then something terrible happens.
Let's go sightsee. And
and when we went to leave, he literally went to like drive. He's like, oh, I'm just going to go under a little bit to turn around. And I was like, no, we will back up into the highway before I would drive under that thing. So it definitely had a creepy vibe.
Always trust your gut.
If I remember reading about it, the phone call that you got about your daughter ended up being a hoax, right?
It ended up being, she was in law enforcement at the time, and she was in Northern Virginia. She was working with some pretty serious, some pretty serious bad guys. And so at the time, I wasn't really sure if it was somebody who had somehow gotten her information and was trying to rattle the family, or if it was just a hoax. But yes, it did turn out to be that she had never been kidnapped. That was just another very strange coincidence, because Abby usually always has her phone, but that day she was out training, and they don't let you bring your phone. So she'd left her phone in her car, and it was an all-day thing. And so we kept calling, and her phone just kept ringing and ringing. And her boyfriend he wasn't sure either exactly what was going on. It just was one of those rare times when usually when I call, she picks up immediately. Mm-hmm. And so as the day wore on, the hours wore on, it just, it was getting more and more concerning that she wasn't, but it turned out she was fine.
Well, I appreciate her service and what she does, but as a mom, oh my gosh, that would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah,
it was.
I can only imagine, but my gosh. Well, I'm glad she's okay though.
Yeah.
So you had received your bachelor's in journalism in 1992, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was it that drew you into doing journalism to begin with?
I've always wanted to be a writer. Okay. I've always had sort of a knack for it. My mother she loved to write children's stories. Okay. She was a teacher, and she worked with second grade primarily, but she loved to write stories, and she was really, really talented. And then my dad, he has several master's degrees, but he was primarily a librarian. And so he was really good at research, and he also was good at writing. And so I just grew up, and that's what I always wanted to do.
Now, to talk a little bit about because you've had a kind of a prolific career before you started writing, would you mind telling us a bit about what it was like PRing for Lollapalooza and then interviewing?
Oh, yes. That was the very first Lollapalooza tour was coming, and they were just putting it together, and they were trying to find venues. And I was working at the time in Fairfax County, and they have a huge park out there called Lake Fairfax Park. And at the time, it was just a big open field. Now there's water parks and everything else, but at the time, it was a really great venue. Mm-hmm. So we pushed hard to get that, because that was a big coup for the county to get that there. But I will tell you some funny stories if you'd like from behind the scenes.
Yes, heck yes.
The neighborhood was not happy because it was a very ritzy neighborhood. Okay. And the idea of all these dirty hippies coming to see this concert. And so the council wasn't too thrilled about it either after we'd already made all the arrangements. So a lot of my job was sort of like to run interference. And because I was good at writing, I was like answering all the hate mail from those county residents about like, I can't believe you've done this. Yeah. We had already done one big concert. There was a thing called the HF Festival, and we had done that for like 4th of July the previous year. Okay. So we got all these, and it was like Concrete Blonde and Violent Femmes. I can't remember, but it was those kind of groups. Little alternative. That was back in, that was way back in the day.
Early 90s, yeah.
So the letters we were getting were all these letters from people in Northern Virginia in the very pristine Reston area saying, I remember when you did HF Festival, all these cars parked around and they all had Maryland license plates, which is, of course, the sign that these people do not belong here. And it is just an absolute offense that they are even in the county at all. So that was kind of fun. And then while the concert was going on, my husband, Dan, is a musician. We met. I was covering the local music scene, and he was a bass player in a band. So he loved music. So I brought him with me. So at one point he was like backstage, and when Ice-T was there, Ice-T had one of these big water balloon cannon, like slingshot cannon things. So he's like helping pick out people in the crowd to like slam with the water balloons. And at that point, I'm standing in the office with, I always used to say the aptly name, maybe I shouldn't say his name, but it was one of the councilmen who was really not happy. The Fairfax council members was really not happy. So I was in the office trying to calm him down and saying, this is a perfectly normal event. This is going to be really good for the area, blah, blah, blah. As just as I'm finished saying, there's nothing to worry about here. Everything's wonderful. We can hear from the stage Ice-T screaming, F the police. Only he didn't say F the police.
Yes, right.
Yes. And so then my boss and my boss's son, she was wonderful too. We're both standing there acting like, what?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything.
I didn't hear anything. What? What was that?
He was saying, thanks.
So that was interesting. So there were some interesting things happen, but it was great. And then when Living Color came on, I got to go back and take a bunch of pictures. And Henry Rollins was wonderful. He was really nice. And it was just a great event. The weird thing, there were some weird things that happened. That it was in August, and in Virginia, we don't have humidity as bad as in Charleston, but it's pretty humid, especially in August. And so many people came like dressed head to toe in black leather, and it was an all day event. So that was a little rough, but it was fun. Yeah, I loved it. It was a great experience.
We were just talking last night, my boyfriend and I, about one we mentioned in Living Color, which is funny, you just did, and how big it was, and how the Super Bowl, like back in the day when in Living Color, he was telling me knowledge of how it stopped for 30 minutes and Living Color was on. It was this big, huge thing. So that's why the Super Bowl halftime is so big now to keep people to keep watching it. I didn't either. So I was like, very interesting. But music, you would think like communities, I'm sure that they get frustrated. And living out here in New Orleans, we did the City Park
in the Oaks,
for Christmas, and he was saying, gosh, can you imagine being a local and have to deal with all this traffic? Along with that, though, either you love your community and you want to like upbring it and be like, yay, we're getting people here and help build the community, but at the same time it's like, can these people just park somewhere else? There's only so much parking, but like bringing in for the community as somebody who loves to go out and like do community things, I think that's a great. So, and music,
it was great.
Love for most of us here. We all love music and movies.
Oh yeah, and especially because it was the first one. There had never been a Lollapalooza tour. Nobody really knew what to expect. Yeah, but that's why I would give great credit to my boss, because she's really the one who pushed for it, because she said, let's at least try it. And now it's part of history. It's part of music history.
You think people just have preconceived notions from Woodstock and like further that direction, that they're probably thinking it's going to be a shit show.
It's probably the same people complaining about when Woodstock happened.
That's great though that you got to experience that, because that's like a once in a lifetime.
It was fun.
And your memories of it. And,
And speaking of once in a lifetime events, the other once in a lifetime, a person you got to interview early in your career was G. Gordon Liddy.
Oh my gosh. And we got to be kind of friends after that. And that was incredible too.
For people who don't know, explain to the audience who G. Gordon Liddy is or was.
G. Gordon Liddy was probably the mastermind of the Watergate break-in, the operation itself of how it would go. He's the one who came up with how it would all work. But yeah, he was one of the plumbers, they call themselves. And he went to jail, of course, for his role in that. But then when he came out of jail, he got a radio show. That was sort of the beginning of talk radio, especially the sort of conservative, the same station where he worked. It was Howard Stern in the morning.
Oh, wow.
wow. Okay.
And then it would be G. Gordon Liddy. So they were sort of very eclectic. And he was a great departure from everything else. And it just happened to be right around the corner from where I was working for Fairfax County, but I was not at the parks anymore. I was working with housing. And he was right around the corner. And at one point, I just said to him, hey, I'm a freelancer. Can I come by and interview you? And he was really nice. He's like, oh, yeah, sure. We'll see how that works out. Well, then around the same time, we had just gotten new technology, which was called a scanner, which was brand new technology at the time, and also like the equivalent of Photoshop.
Yeah.
So I'd gotten a cartoon. Gordon Liddy used to always joke about how much testosterone he had. So I'd gotten this cartoon. I think it was a Far Side, and it was a caveman, and he was at the doctor's, and the doctor saying, well, Mr. Grog, you look good other than your testosterone level is too high. So I'd gotten this cartoon, and I changed it to where it said, I'm sorry, Mr. Liddy, your testosterone. And I had faxed it over to him, which was also sort of new technology. Well, then he did an interview for Washington Post magazine, and he referenced that cartoon. He had it framed up in his office.
Really cool.
So then when I called him back, I was like, hey, can I come and, interview? I'm the one who sent you that. So he said, sure. So we came and did the interview, and I got a bunch of pictures, and it just happened to be on my birthday, which is in June. And it was right around the time of the Watergate anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So when we came, they had catering and all this stuff. So I had spent my birthday with him. And then after that, we sort of like once in a while would kind of talk back and forth. Well, then when they did the big formal Watergate anniversary at the Watergate Hotel, he invited me and Dan to go to it. So we got to go, and we met Marion Barry, and we met all these other interesting politicos at the time. But after that, we sort of had a kind of a casual, it wasn't exactly a friendship, but we definitely sort of stayed in touch. And I've got he gave me some signed books. I got his game. He had a board game about how the Electoral College works.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have all this interesting stuff from Gordon Liddy.
Do you whip that board game out during holidays?
Family game night.
I have never opened it because, it's like I kept thinking I'll wait till the right time. Maybe someday, maybe I will.
Keep it close.
If I had known the last few elections how crazy things would get with the Electoral College, I probably would, because it's not like a educational game.
Yeah.
I mean, you will learn something from it. But he was telling me like it has all these things you can do to like sabotage your opponents. And one of them was something that Gordon Liddy told me that he really, at some point in his career, was part of, where there was a very close local election and they weren't sure how it was going to go. And so like a day before the election, they hired this woman to go out, stand naked on the front lawn of one of the candidates and scream, this is your baby.
Oh, wow.
You need to own up to what you've done, and just make this big scene. Because back then, when there was no internet, they knew the newspaper would cover it, but they wouldn't get to disprove it in time.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's what the game was about.
That's
all
cool.
these different things you could do.
That's really neat. I'm going to have to look into that one. Yeah.
But that was fun. And he was a really fun guy. He was very nice, very gracious.
We're just going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I'm Matthew.
And I'm Quentin.
And this is Visceral Reactions, your regular stop for irregular amounts of horror. Join us as we analyze horror movies and explore their historical contexts. From classic scares to hidden gems, hear in-depth discussions and new perspectives on the genre. Tune in every week to expand your horror horizons on Visceral Reactions, the podcast.
So speaking of the book and your the books prior to and everything, have you received lots of notoriety for your books? Is there another book in the process?
I'm working on another book now. Bandun Gate, that book just won a Pencraft Award. It won
wonderful.
Horror Fiction of the Year. Yeah, so I was really excited about that. I'm working on another book now. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit less, it's not as dark.
Right.
Okay.
The basic plot is, it's more of a YA. The basic plot is there's a 17-year-old girl who insists that her 11-year-old brother has a very unique paranormal ability. But her father thinks, this is just a coping mechanism she's come up with to cope with the loss of their mother.
Okay.
And so then the book is sort of does the boy really have this ability, or is it sort of almost like a Munchausen by proxy where she is orchestrating it to deal with her own need.
So your ideas for that though, is it coming from, or do you want to share if it's coming from like factual stuff that you've experienced or that you've heard firsthand from stories?
Some of the characters, the basic storyline and the basic characters began with real people. Okay. And I was trying really hard to think up what's a paranormal activity that's never, that isn't already in the mainstream. You know what I mean? There's been a ton of telekinesis, or I can set things on fire with my mind or whatever. So I came up with one, and then I sort of wrote some science behind it of how it could sort of make sense. Okay. So it's something that and I shouldn't say there's never been a story that has this paranormal activity, but in my research, I cannot find one. Okay. So
I know you have a list of books that inspired you to write Bandun Gate. Do you have a list for this one? Because this seems almost in line of Stephen King more than anything.
I've always loved Stephen King. Obviously, my first book I ever read all the way through that scared the bejeebers out of me was Salem's Lot. Okay. And I really did sleep with like a rosary around my neck for nights and nights after that. And also, I just want to also give out a shout out to Clive Barker.
Yes.
Because when I was writing Encyclopedia of Hell, and that was my first book, I was a local reporter at the time. He was also very gracious. He helped me at the time.
That's
he was in
wonderful.
England, but he took me up with his assistant who was here in America, and he provided interviews. He gave me photos for it. He gave me a lot of his behind the scenes, what got him started. And so that was definitely an inspiration too. And he's still putting out great work. I love all the, they keep coming up with new twists on his Hellbound Heart, which of course became Hellraiser, which is now the Hellraiser miniseries.
So and there's Candyman as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Candyman.
Yeah. And that's like, reminds like old folks tale or like old stories where it's like where you don't say Candyman, you would do like Bloody Mary in the mirror kind of thing. But I love that. That was so great.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, it still scares the crap out of me. Like I do it, but no. So when you think of growing up, what even now as an adult, what's like a scary movie that still gets you?
I like a lot of sort of more obscure movies. Some of the mainstream ones, I'm trying to think of a mainstream one that's still, you know what? A recent one that I really like, but I don't know if it's scary, but I think about it a lot. And the premise is scary, is Get Out.
Oh,
and the premise of that because I think what's scary about that movie is that you think you know people, and I don't want to spoil it if people haven't seen it, but the couple thinks they know each other, but one of them does not really know enough about the other person. And that's kind of scary on a day-to-day level, that, the things that can be happening under the surface and you think you're aware of things. But that was obviously a great movie. I don't want to be obtuse, but there's just a lot of weird ones I like. There's a really weird movie.
Because we really like old classic horror films. So, yeah.
There's a I think it's from the 90s movie called Salvage. It's about a girl who works she works the all-night shift at a convenience store, and she wakes up. She's trying to get a ride home, and then all these creepy things happen, and then there's a lot of is this real? How much of this is her imagination? And then when you get to the end, it really grab you. And there's another movie like that called Crazy as Hell. Have you ever seen that? Michael Beach is in that, and Eric LaSalle. No. And it's about a doctor who goes to work with he goes to work at it's not an all-out insane asylum. It's more people who need sort of basic psychiatric care. That's another one that is really well done and very scary. I like all the big time ones too. I mean, I really like Sixth Sense. Right. I like the black and white Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, I do. That's one of my favorites.
I was going to say the miniseries isn't bad, but the ending of the miniseries kind of to me betrayed the whole plot thought behind Shirley Jackson's idea. But that original one, that scene in the attic when the wife trumps him.
And just like you don't really see much, but the thump on the, I remember being a kid and my dad scared the crap out of me just because of that. And I'm thinking your mind gets so caught in films like that to me is a great just shows you how your mind plays. You don't have to see much. You just hear it and it'll be, it's still amazing to this
The
day.
scene when the girl is holding the other girl's hand and she says, "Why is your hand so cold?" And then the other girl comes walking out of the hallway saying, "What are you talking about?" Like just things like that.
Yep. That's such a great, I'm so glad.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I love the old movies, so they sure beat the new ones. But yeah. So how much could people say if they were to read the Bandun Gate is true and factual?
Well, in the end, I tried to put together sort of a primer on what's real and and where some of the inspirations came from. There really is a gate like Bandun Gate. It's not that uncommon out here in Charleston to have things like that. Like that has happened more than once, where Dan and I, who are from Northern Virginia, will be driving by something and we're like, "What is that?" And it turns out it has significance down here. The villain in the book, Ryla, is based on a real person. That's a real person. Eliza Huger was a woman who was born in Charleston. She ended up in New Orleans, and there's not a lot of documentation, but there's a lot of anecdotal stories. Some say she was a witch. Some say she was a psychopath. Some just say she was evil. Well, her brothers went to bring her back. Things went wrong. They ended up shooting her. And so they brought her corpse back, and no church, no cemetery would take her body because she was supposedly so evil.
Oh, wow.
So a church out in Clemson agreed to take her, but they had to build a wall all around her grave. And that grave has been hit by lightning repeatedly, and none of the graves around it have. And the wall keeps crumbling, and none of the other stonework that's older in that cemetery has the problems that this grave does. Lightning has hit that gravestone. It's got a flat stone across the top of the grave. And the only words that are still legible, she was buried in the mid 1800s, so it's not that old. The only words still legible on it are "brother's sorrow."
Oh, wow.
And no matter no matter how often they do repairs, it just keeps crumbling. So that's real. And that's a real thing.
They say lightning only hits the same place once, though.
Lightning never strikes twice.
So that's odd. Okay.
There's older graves that are in that vicinity that are in way better shape. And that's why I'm saying that's just a weird, I don't know, coincidence. So that's real. The Gullah's stories in there are real. Both the history of the Gullah and then the beliefs in the spirits and the sort of the rules for the spirits and how things work in the spirit world. That's all based in Gullah tradition.
Okay.
Is the because in the book, in the beginning, you go to visit your father. Is the woman who works there, the caretaker, is she a real person?
Yes.
Okay.
Not quite that circumstances, but yes, that is a real person who taught me a lot about Gullah and who, when I say taught, it wasn't like, oh, sit down I'll go through the lessons. It's more of like an anecdotal thing and, and sort of sharing stories.
Yeah.
There's also a line in there that is true that I say about Charleston is that in Charleston, when you talk about ghosts, people don't say, oh, have you ever seen a ghost? They'll say like, hey, how many ghosts have you seen? How many ghosts have you talked to? Where did you see a ghost?
Because it's so frequent, it happens so often.
It is incredibly pervasive. My husband and I were talking the other day to like our insurance advisor, and we met, and he said, oh, you guys are in Charleston? We said, yes. And he said, I was just down there with my wife, and he launched into a story about how he was at a B&B down here and talking about the ghost that was in the where he was staying, that, things would get moved during the night. They would, the clothes would get put, from one side of the closet to the other, and the sounds and everything they heard. So that's very, very common here.
You think because the history is so deep down there and so much has happened? That's like here in New Orleans, the history out here in New Orleans. Yes,
exactly. New Orleans is another city like that. And Charleston, too, when you think about it, Charleston is a city of a lot of interesting sort of psycho-spiritual contrasts. It's called the Holy City because there are so many churches here. There are so many churches here of all denominations and temples. But then it's also one of the most haunted cities. So there's also sort of in the city jail, something like in the thousands of people died there in a very short amount of time, many of them, who were innocent, they're waiting trial and they died there, which isn't something when you think of Holy City, you don't think of a jail where thousands of people are dying. And then also the first shots of the Civil War were fired here at Fort Sumter. It's really kind of the cradle of the Confederacy. But then over the decades that followed, there have never been any lynchings here. There's, so there's just a lot of weird contrasts about the city itself. And I don't know if that's part of how it ended up being sort of a weird vortex of paranormal activity.
So talking about the old city jail, can you give us a little history about it?
Sure. The city jail, it's on Magazine Street. I know that it's been in use. It's been in some sort of official use since the late 1600s. And a lot of people, so many people died there that there's just a huge mass grave. They had to just be buried in a huge mass grave. I think it's 14,000 people have died there. And again, a lot of them are waiting trials, so they may have been innocent. Obviously, a lot were not. A lot of pirates, a lot of murders. Oh, America's first female serial killer was executed there, Lavinia Fisher.
Yes.
She's there. It's eventually it was closed down, and now it's you can go tour it. The building is still there.
I think it closed down in 1939, was it?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was 1939.
And now it's used for one of the colleges. I don't remember which one. They use it for their art department.
That I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I know that it's a lot of the older buildings, they do have sort of cross work with many of the colleges down here. There's one of the big things that the colleges down here try to teach is architecture, but of the older buildings.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
Restoration architecture. And it's likely that it's part of those projects.
That's what I'm thinking of.
They try to teach the old methods. So if something goes, if you need to redo the woodwork or the stonework, rather than just sort of doing a simulation or whatever, they try to teach, they still use the original tools. And that's a really interesting field. And it's nice to see that they're keeping that alive. And the Old City Jail would be a perfect candidate for that. So I'm sure that is what that sounds. And it might be the artwork too. There are a lot of places that do that too, that showcase artwork of the local artists because so many tourists come to the building. So it's a nice way to sort of interweave. The different facets of the city.
Have you been there yourself?
I have been to the Old City Jail. I have not been inside.
Okay.
That's another one that has kind of a creepy vibe. Yep. I definitely will at some point, but even being in the outside, it definitely has the look of a place that you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time. Like when whoever built it as the jail did a good job of having it sort of be foreboding. And but it's it's definitely interesting. And it's so old too that's part of it too. You just don't see many buildings it's stonework and it has sort of these towers and it's definitely worth visiting. I would definitely say. Same with Dock Street Theater. That's another local. That was originally a hotel down here, but that is now used as a theater. That's another one definitely that's worth seeing.
It has, they believe the ghost of, I don't remember his name. He's the father of John Wilkes Booth.
That's right. Yes, John Wilkes Booth really did get into a big fight there. He almost beat somebody to death. I think they have another famous ghost there.
Booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And they have another ghost. Oh, do I have her name? I made some notes. Nettie.
Yeah.
Nettie.
She's the woman in red.
Yes.
May have been a prostitute.
And the tattered dress.
Yes.
Yes. Who was trying to get into the high life of Charleston, but failed. Right. So she climbed up the top of the theater and cursed the city, got struck by lightning and died.
Yeah. There's definitely a lesson in that. Yes. That's a beautiful building too. That's an interesting building to see. And they're still in downtown Charleston. A lot of these, when you like the old jail, especially, and I guess Dock Street, and when you think of it, you think, oh, it's sort of off by itself in a field somewhere. No, it's really integrated into the city. And I think that's part of its ambiance.
What was something about the Dock Street? Something Planters, because that's where I found out the Planters punch for our drinks for today.
Oh, I think that was what the hotel was originally called, the Planters Hotel. Because Dock Street Theater, it was a theater in the 1700s. It burned down. They built another one. I think that one burned down.
That's right. It had its string of bad luck with everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Then they opened the hotel, and the hotel, maybe in the last 80 or so years, got converted into a theater.
Okay.
And now it's the Dock Street Theater.
Okay. So do you know, let's break off into like hometown legends, because part of our thing is hometown hauntings. So of course, a lot of people have heard of the other like famous places and stuff. But my thing is like, what could people do, if they think of Charleston, what are some legends that locals know that other curious minds want to know of what has gone on there that, you know, you just may not hear that much of?
One of the big legends down here, it's not about a particular person per se. However, most locals will tell you, yeah, there's stretches of the beaches along the islands around Charleston where people frequently see ghosts.
Okay.
And around in Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, there's stretches of the beach, and even in Charleston and sort of along the waterways, where people will say that, I heard a woman who told me that she was coming back from the beach, and I can't remember. She said she thought she forgot something, and she turned around to see it, and there was a woman who said something to her like, "Oh, there's nothing here for you." And it kind of creeped her out, and she went to get her husband to say, "Hey, come back and help me look, because there's this woman here who's a little bit odd." And by the time they turned around, the woman was gone. But, you know, by the time she and her husband turned around and walked back, the woman was gone. But you hear stories like that a lot. People who say, and it usually happens right around just after sundown. Like, so just when the sun is starting to go down. And the idea is that it's probably someone who, I guess it's called an anchor ghost. There are different, you know, there's mission ghosts who they're sort of task oriented, but they think of them as anchor ghosts, that they're tied to this place and tied to these shores. And they're not scary. They're not trying to do anything bad to you, but this is just, they see this as sort of their turf. There's also similar stories about the lighthouses here, that there's a story that there's a lighthouse on Sullivan's Island where every now and then supposedly people see strange colored lights from the top. And there at times when no one is there, almost all the lighthouses here are either automated or they're on some kind of, you know, and they have white LEDs. They don't have like green lights that glow from the lighthouse. And that is supposedly tied also to a strange phenomenon. If you see the different color lights, then it usually means that something strange is going on. There's another local legend on Edisto Island, which is right nearby, of a girl, Julia Lafarge, I think her name was. She was from a wealthy family. She went into a coma, was pronounced dead, was buried in the family crypt. 15 years later, when another member of the family died and they opened up the crypt, they found her skeleton hunched over by the door and scratch marks in the door where she was buried alive. And since that time, the door won't latch properly. They've tried all different kinds of latch.
This story.
Yes. And no matter what they do, and they think it's her ghost who doesn't want another person to suffer the fate she did, so that she's the one who prevents it.
That's a good, So all these places people could go to. They're tourists.
Right, and they're all right in the Charleston area.
Do you know anything about, like, because isn't Charleston known for like having a weird amount of UFO sightings and things of that nature?
I have heard that. I don't really know. Unfortunately, I don't know that much about it. Part of what I have heard is that we're right on the port, right on the water. And so there is some question of, is it just some sort of either reflection, or can it be like a ship that's just far enough out at sea that it's got some kind of weird reflection? Or who knows, it might be. The other thing that people have suggested is that Charleston is known as one of the most hospitable places in America. It almost always wins the friendliest city. And it has been posited that if beings came from another world, they would come here because they would get a nice reception. People would be polite and welcoming. And so I suppose there's something to be said for that.
And I think there's been other reports of a lot of cryptozoology happening in Charleston. Like, I think mermaids is it the big one?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stories of there's been mermaid sightings, both in person, where people will say we thought we saw a girl and she was drowning, but then, you know, the closer we got, we realized it wasn't a girl. She wasn't drowning. So they're the in-person things, but then also the people who take video or photos. Mm-hmm. And then when they go and look at them later, they're like, well, what's that in the background? It looks like a girl's shape and she's calm and, seems fine and everything, but she's so far out into the water and we didn't see anybody else while we were there. So there's a lot of those kind of sightings here too.
Do you think that's how a lot of ghost apparitions are seen, is through photos after the fact? Like, you may not notice while you're there, or if you hear something, but if you take pictures is when more people notice?
Spirit photography is definitely a huge part of the paranormal. Okay. And I'm old enough that when I took photography, I had to learn to develop and print in a black and white lab. Right. Uh-huh. So I know enough to know that some of the things that I've seen in the photos, they're not mistakes from the darkroom or a glare on the lens. Mm-hmm. Some things really are not what you'd expect. Yeah. I can tell the difference I can tell a fake right away. Right. If it's something that they try to manipulate the negative mm-hmm. in the lab, or obviously if it's a glare against the lens, but some of the stuff doesn't look like that. That doesn't mean it can't be, mm-hmm. some other sort of, double exposure. I don't know what, but there are people who really believe that you pick up that ghosts would have a certain energy. Yeah. And that a camera can detect that, mm-hmm. that a camera can detect a sort of a disruption the same way it picks up light, mm-hmm. that they can detect the differences in that sort of energy.
Have you ever tried
have I ever tried doing it?
Yeah, spiritual photography.
Not really.
Okay.
A lot of it is because I feel like I have a respect for the paranormal, mm-hmm. but a big part of that is knowing where my place is and not what lines not to cross. Right. So I am not somebody who's going to go out looking for, I'm not a ghost chaser. Okay. I'm not going to go out and look for it. I'm not going to try to tempt fate. I told you I wouldn't go under that gate. No. Yeah. I just feel but I'm fascinated by it and I want to go see it, but mm-hmm. I don't want to be part of it.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah. You don't want to be the linchpin that does something.
To stir the pot.
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. I guess the way to explain it is when we were looking for houses, mm-hmm. I'm not going to go looking to buy a haunted house. Some people love that idea. Yeah. If I found a house I really loved and somebody said, "Oh, it might be haunted," I'd probably still buy the house, but I would, I'd be respectful. Yeah. Okay. I'm definitely not gonna have a seance or. No. I don't get my tarot cards read. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm just like, okay, I'll just look at it and step back. I know people who do spirit photography. I should have talked to them, and they really are fascinating people. And mm-hmm. And they're very sincere, at least the ones I've met. I've never met anybody who's like, oh my gosh, this is so easy to do, or this mm-hmm. is such a great scam. I've never met anybody like that.
I think once you start talking to people that are interested in that, they have a real interest. They're not... Right. Like you said, scammers are just trying
it's
to
kind of like storm chasers. Yeah. It's like people who chase tornadoes. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel the same way. Tornadoes are interesting. Do I want to be close enough to get great photos of one? No, I do not. Yeah. But they, like you said, they're really interested. They're not doing it because they want to make the local news or they don't want, some crazy thing to happen and now they're the story. They're mm-hmm. just really interested mm-hmm. and they've, studied up. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. So we are just trying to get people to feel like with the recession and, times are tough. Everybody's working because they have to, not always for funsies. And so it's trying to get people to go out in their hometown, maybe go see something, travel, see what you can do, bring people back out into the community, help out local businesses where you can. And so that's part of our Hometown Hauntings is to tell people you don't have to go out of state to have a vacation. Mm-hmm. Go see what's in your backyard. Go out there and, like you said, go wander. Go see what's available. Don't trespass and get in trouble.
Don't cross the gate. Don't cross Bandun Gate.
Don't drive under the gate. Yeah. Don't poke the bear, but go see what's available out there and help support your hometown and get out with your families and build those memories. So
that's a great idea.
Which, where can people go and find your book if they're interested in reading it or any of your books, as a matter of fact?
They're on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I have a website, miriamvanscott.com. Mm-hmm. That's got a little bit more information about a little more of a blurb for the different things.
If people want to reach out to you, are you on social media like TikTok
I'm
on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter. Okay. I am on Twitter at, I think it's Miriam VS.
Okay.
But if you put in my name, it'll pop up.
Okay. Yeah.
I've met a lot of interesting people from Twitter. And if if people do have questions about, I've had people on Twitter ask me about Charleston in general,
Right. Yeah.
about, restaurants or about, like you're saying, different things. Or I've had people ask me about paranormal questions. I like getting questions. And if I can provide information, I'd be glad to do it.
So if somebody was to reach out and say, if I was to go to one place in Charleston where I would think I'd have the most interaction with something,
right,
where would you send them to?
For the paranormal?
Yes, ma'am.
Probably on a place like the Ghost City tours, where they have you'll be able to cover a lot of different sites because as I said, the buildings are right there in the city. But if I had to pick one from that, probably either Dock Street or the Old City Jail.
Okay.
They've got a really rich paranormal story. They're also, if you are a photographer or just appreciate the architecture, and they're very interesting and very unique places.
Yeah.
So I would probably go to one of those.
I love the look of like old buildings and like what it once was, like just imagining what it once
There's
was.
also, I just want to put in one more. I don't mean to interrupt, but
you're good. Yeah.
I just thought of something else that's interesting, and it's right near Dock Street Theater. So if you're downtown and you see Dock Street Theater, go to the Unitarian Cemetery.
Oh.
It's a cemetery in Charleston, and there is a grave there that belongs to the woman who they believe inspired Annabelle Lee. When
the
was stationed
down.
Okay.
They believe he apparently had a romance brewing with a local girl from a wealthy family.
Okay.
The family sort of broke them up. She died not long after, and more than one person have said they've seen her ghost, or they've seen a presence that definitely they believe is the spirit of Annabelle Lee. So that's the Unitarian Cemetery, and it's right near Dock Street Theater.
So everything's within distance to each other. So that's pretty cool. I like that. So always want people to get out and just see, and especially like I moved around a lot. And so like being able to experience things from all over the United States and abroad is just great. So the history that we have within our own hometowns are great.
Good.
So,
and there, like you said, there really is a lot locally.
That's great. And the oldness, and like you said, the most hospitable.
Yep.
So go out there and everybody
there you
will
go.
be nice
I'm sure
to
the ghosts are going to be nice.
Even
too.
the ghosts are polite.
They might have something to say. So yeah. Well, we really appreciate you being on today and taking the time. And everybody, check out these books or reach out to you if you have questions. And let's see what it's out there. And if people have pictures, look at your pictures.
Please send us pictures.
Yeah, we're interested in what people have, and just to see there's some believers, some non-believers, and I believe, but I'm very skeptical of what other people submit, just because I'm like most who are like, that's crap, or that's fact. Like I believe that just looking at something, but it's really interesting to see what people capture. And so it's just the old history that comes back. It's great. So do you have anything else for Miriam?
Just thank you for being on here and talking. It was a really wonderful time to be here.
Yeah, and hearing all about it. I'm glad your daughter's okay.
Yes,
but your background,
not being kidnapped.
yes, but your background and everybody you got to interview and moving forward, like it's great.
Well, thanks, thanks for me. I really have enjoyed it. If I'm ever in New Orleans, I'll give you guys a call. And if you guys are in Charleston, seriously, give me a call, and I'll show you the real band.
Most definitely. But be on the lookout. We're going to hook you up with some tickets to go on one of our tours.
Okay,
and they won't expire, so you could use them in any of our cities. But if you're in New Orleans, let us know. But we'll definitely be in touch.
Okay, great. Thank you
so much.
Thank
you so much for being on. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The streets of Charleston, where many have marched on their paths to freedom, and many have fallen, claimed by their cause. Walk with us as we follow in their footsteps. Witness the stories of the restless spirits who fought and died here. Soldiers, pirates, killers, around every corner, down every alley, linger the ghosts of liberty.
Book your tickets now at GhostCityTours.com.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the interview. And today we have another, well, actually, this isn't a guest submitted photograph. This actually came from one of our employees, Holly, right?
Correct.
So what's the story about this photograph, Misty? So
Holly went on vacation and she went to Charleston.
Good place to go on vacation.
Yeah, her pictures looked great. So she went on a tour with Ghost City Tours.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so in this picture is one of our tour guides and her boyfriend, Ryan. And Holly took the photo.
So first of all, this is Bruce, right? This is one of our tour guides, Bruce.
Yes.
You know what it really looks like? It looks like a dad is like talking to his son.
Don't cross the road without the crosswalk.
Yeah, or like why'd you paint your front door red? That looks so stupid. Like, you know,
do you not know how to parallel park?
When are you gonna leave
job.
that wife of yours? Anyways, that's totally the first thing that comes to mind. It's like a dad yelling at his son.
His jacket matches his shoes, and his pants are very nicely pressed.
That's right. Good job with
Way
the
to go,
pants.
Bruce. Whoop whoop.
And Ryan too.
Yes.
You got nice what are
The
those,
tattoos.
slacks?
Yep.
Right.
And his polo shirt.
Nice.
There you go.
All right, so we're not here today to talk about Bruce and Ryan and their potential father-son relationship or their pants. What we're here to talk about is the fact that they thought that they might have caught something paranormal in this photograph.
Yes.
And you know, I'm sure James will put this one up and zoom in a little bit more so we can see what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about is right above Bruce's head, there are two green dots.
Yes. So for those who are listening, though, there you have two gentlemen standing in the street, a father and a son, that looks like, standing in the street of a residential neighborhood, some cars, some trees, and above Bruce's head are two green dots. Orbs.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. They're not
But
orbs.
there's three. Oh.
No, they're not orbs. So,
then why are they green? And
well,
other things are obviously streetlight colored.
well, because what that is, it's a two. So if you look behind Bruce's chin,
Yes.
you'll see two street lights. And by coincidence, there's two green dots that are in the same pattern, essentially the same distance apart if you eliminate the glowing from around the street lights. And what that is the light from the street lights hitting the lens of the camera, causing a reflection that is apparent in the photograph.
Well, shit.
I mean, we still got Bruce and Ryan, so it's still a great photograph.
Look, so look above Bruce's elbow, far back there. Like, I would have to wear my glasses if I haven't looked at this photo before. But see, there's a green dot there.
Yeah, that's a street sign.
Damn it.
That's a green street sign.
Okay. Oh, I guess I should wear my glasses.
Yeah, that's like, you know, Broadway or something. I don't know. But this is actually pretty common. A lot of people send us photographs where they feel that they have photographed orbs.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, unless the photograph is demonstrating movement of the orb, like for example, like let's say, like if you can imagine a comet shooting across the sky, and if you took a picture of it, you would see how like there's the front and then there's the tail, like it's moving. Now there are times where you might photograph a legitimate orb that's of paranormal nature and capture that in a photograph, but you're never going to know if it's paranormal. First of all, so a photograph, you are never going to be able to take a picture of an orb and say that's paranormal nature. You're just not going to be able to because it's a photograph.
Okay.
But if it has motion, if it's moving, that is one hint that it could have been something paranormal nature that you photographed.
And not like a dust particle or a bug or something.
Well, it could have been. That's what also throws you off a little bit. So dust particles and bugs and stuff like that, they will appear as orbs. And if, you know, the wind's blowing, a dust particle that is hit by light from your flash, and then of course that light comes back to the camera, and that's what the picture is. If that dust particle is moving fast enough, it could look like it have a tail. Same thing with a bug.
But would it be that big? A dust particle would?
Yeah, and sometimes it's bigger. Or it could be bigger or smaller. It depends on how far away that dust particle is away from your camera. It's the same thing with a bug. Like, so if you're out at night in Charleston or Savannah or New Orleans, and any of the cities that we're in where mosquitoes just make life miserable, if that mosquito is really close to the camera, I mean, it could appear the size of a bird.
Okay.
But, you know, if it's off in the distance, it's not going to appear that way.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's the first thing you want to look for is, does this photograph demonstrate that this orb is moving in any manner? And if it is not,
so if they were to take another picture there, but maybe she scooted over, you would still see those in the same pretty much location?
No, you wouldn't see them in the same location because the reason they're in that location is because of her position and the light's position. And if she changes her position, those lights are going to be, those little green lights are going to be a slightly different position. So they'd either be there or not
there. Okay.
But they're almost certainly still going to be in a group of two in the same exact pattern as the lights behind.
So what happens if she didn't change position but took photos back to back to back and we saw that was moving, but her location stayed?
Well, in that case, I would still say it's the light.
Damn it.
But like if there was no light, like let's say, for example, the street lights weren't there and there was no reason why there are two glowing balls in the middle of the screen. Which one?
Sorry.
Balls should never be glowing. If they are,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Go see a doctor.
But
let's say there were no lights. It was complete darkness, and for some reason you had 2 balls of light in the middle of your frame when you took a picture. One, if you're in complete darkness and you photograph something, that is suggesting that it has its own light source, right? Because there's no light to hit it and reflect that light back into the camera. So it has its own light source. That in itself could suggest that it's something paranormal in nature.
Okay.
But if we're really sticking to, pretty strict criteria about what's paranormal or not, based on a photograph, you still can never say, yes, that was definitely an orb of paranormal nature in that photograph, because it's a photograph.
Yeah.
So, Holly, I'm glad that you had fun on vacation in Charleston, probably on Ghost City's dime. You're welcome.
It was not.
I don't know. I don't know if we sent her here there for business,
but it'd be good. Yeah. No, but it was great that even on vacation, she represents our company, likes what we stand for, enough to go on a tour. Yay.
Yeah, because we got to keep Bruce busy.
Yes.
We got to keep
lecturing.
We got to keep Bruce in those khakis.
Yes.
But to wrap this all up.
Yeah. It's crap, Holly.
Holly, your picture sucks.
But thanks for sharing.
Yeah, but thanks for sharing, and please send us more.
I'm glad you had a good time.
But no, it's not crap. And by the way, if you ever get a photograph like this, and you send it to us, there is a good chance that we're gonna say it's not an orb. But that doesn't mean don't send it. That doesn't mean be embarrassed about it, because there's still like the thrill and like if even just thinking you caught something, that's exciting.
I submitted some of my own, so I can't wait for you to tear the shit out of those.
Yeah, I'm going to. Way worse. They'll be like, who is the moron who took these pictures?
This girl. But it is exciting to do it, so I can't wait to talk about those. But yeah, so good job, Holly. Good job, Bruce, for dressing for the job.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're ever in Charleston, Bruce is actually one of our highest rated tour guides.
I was going to say, he gets lots of positive feedback.
Yeah, so when you call in to book your tour in Charleston, so we have 3 tours in Charleston: the Haunted Pub Crawl.
Yes.
Ghost of
21
Liberty.
and over.
Yep. And we have Ghost of Liberty, which is all ages.
Yes.
And then the Death and Depravity tour, which is the all ages tour. Another little hint: if you guys are going to be taking a ghost tour and you're hoping to catch these ghostly images and stuff like this, go on the late night tours. So like in Charleston, we have the Death and Depravity tour, and because it is an adults only tour, it happens later at night.
Yes.
And the reason that can be helpful if you're hoping to catch something paranormal on camera is because there's less cars. So there's less headlights hitting windows of houses and all that stuff to make you think that, oh, I got a ghost.
Okay.
And there's just less people in general.
Yeah.
We've had a number of people that have sent us photos over the years where they're like, I photographed a person in an alley, like Philadelphia Alley in Charleston. Actually, I remember a photograph that somebody sent in of Philadelphia Alley where they thought they had caught a full body apparition on camera.
Yeah.
And really it was just like Bob. Like I don't know that his name is Bob, but like you could even see
Bob.
Oh, when you zoomed in and you brightened up the picture a little bit, you could see that he had a can of beer in his hand.
Oh.
Like
he's late night drinking.
Yeah, unless they were drinking what the hell beer was it? I think it was like Heineken or something.
Way back
when.
Yeah.
When Bob was alive.
Okay.
Probably wasn't a ghost. But anyways, yeah. So keep the pictures coming.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Yes. Thank you.
Hometown Hauntings is brought to you by Ghost City Tours, offering tours in over a dozen of the most haunted cities across the United States. Book now at ghostcitytours.com and use promo code PCCHAR15 for 15% off. That's PCCHAR15.